welcome to Series Yet to Be Named. We are here today with Lil Violet, Vixen, Win, and Osmodius. And we're going to be playing some Diablo. Say hi, guys.
Hey.
Yoo-hoo.
They're usually so talkative.
Yeah, usually.
All right, so Vi, this is your first time playing Diablo, right?
Oh god, yes.
All right, well, we are going to level really fast for you. And we've got a couple of topics that we're also going to be talking about tonight as well. The first one being Tay, the AI released by Microsoft that went on a, what would you call it, a racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic, pretty much 4chan in an AI, tirade on Twitter. And, we missed a treasure goblin. Wow, we're already bad at this game. We're the worst.
I'm alive. I'm doing okay.
You came in thinking that we would be good at this game?
Oh, I should have seen that. I forgot to apply some things as well. And let's see here. So the other thing that we have to talk about on the written roster here is the developers of That Dragon Cancer, a fantastic kind of a narrative story game, have come out with some interesting thoughts on the effects of Let's Players on video game sales. And so there's a lot of backlash from the community from that. And what do you guys think about those? Let's talk about Tay first, because that's kind of the fun one.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should definitely pick one to focus on first.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to Tay, you have this very like, you should have seen it coming kind of feeling about this whole thing.
No, it's just like you put something out on the internet, you need to understand all parts of the internet are involved.
And didn't they have the same thing with what was the other chatbot that they had for a while there?
Oh, Cleverbot or whatever it is?
Cleverbot, yeah, Cleverbot back in the day when they brought it out, they had the exact same thing happen.
They had to like put a lot of restrictions on what Cleverbot could talk about.
Yeah. And so that's kind of interesting that they made the same mistake twice. You think they would have at least learned a little bit.
Right. Well, I think because this one was Twitter more than like personal chat.
Yeah.
And so I thought they might have gone with the assumption of like, well, it's Twitter, so things are going to be
Maybe it's better
in a way.
You'd hope people had filters, and I mean, therein lies the problem of the internet: the anonymity and no need to filter yourself.
Right.
I think too is they didn't learn from any other, because Tay is by no means the first AI. One of the first, arguably one of the first AI. I always forget her name, but it was a chatbot.
Was it Eevee?
Eevee, yeah.
Eevee is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen nowadays.
Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, super uncanny. There's also Boybot, which is
Boybot.
I can't. He actually has a name, but he is he's Eevee, but as a 12-year-old boy.
Ooh, interesting.
It's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
That genuinely sounds very, very terrifying. But no, Eevee, I happen to know a wonderful gentleman who is retired, but he was around for a lot of the big, like, birthplace of the internet kind of thing, which is fascinating to talk to him about that kind of stuff. But he talks about Eevee and how the exact same thing of people were fascinated, and the game was to get Eevee to say that she loved you in a certain amount of lines of chat.
Okay.
And
So kind of like it's kind of like how people play the how many degrees away from Hitler on Wikipedia kind of thing.
Yeah, or Kevin Bacon in movies and
Yes.
yeah, 6 degrees of separation.
So it's
And the thing is that's like 30, 40, 50 years ago. People are like, hey, let's try and get this to do something it wasn't programmed to do.
right.
How did you not expect putting something out on the internet that people weren't going to try? I think that what it was is they were just surprised that how far people went.
Ah. Well, and I think the speed might have had a lot to do with it too, because it's like less than 24 hours. They probably put it up online for the beginning of a workday, went home and came back, and everything was just, destroyed.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
And the thing is then they immediately took it down, which I think is a bit of a mistake, honestly.
Ooh,
Yes,
PR nightmare, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely a PR nightmare. But in no way did they try and attempt to re-educate it. The fact that this horrible thing was out there, they could have just said, it was horrible because a bunch of people taught it to be, why don't we try and teach it to be good again?
Right.
Yeah, that's. I think ultimately, when you're talking about the development of an AI that learns, teaching it to learn is nowadays actually kind of easy. Teaching it to understand and learn what's appropriate, that's where the real developments are going to take place.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Tell you something. It's like we see how this stuff works, on a day-to-day basis. We see how the internet always twists things. Like when you have Bodie McBoatface,
Yeah.
the naming of the pole of the scientific vessel.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That is the best name for a
Well,
boat.
I was gonna say I actually really like Bodie McBoatface. I would vote for that if I was voting on that thing. But
you mean you didn't vote?
No, I didn't vote on that.
I did. So you should vote as well.
What did you vote for?
No, but it's
I-
like that's a very tame version, and it's still funny, and it's kind of like
Yeah.
the internet, as big and as open as we talk about it being, it's very segregated, and so it's kind of like with AIs and learning things, you kind of have to hope that a nicer site like Tumblr gets to it before a site like 4chan gets to it.
Now,
If,
did you say a nicer site like Tumblr?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I
say
couldn't
that
quite
because
hear you.
they
I
have
wasn't
the
sure if I
whole
was going
ads
crazy or
and
not.
everything.
No, okay, to be fair, there are nice parts of Tumblr. There are no nice parts of 4chan.
So I would actually like to dispute that there are nice parts of 4chan. Just nobody goes there.
Anything that's not
So the nice parts are the
is
unoccupied
actually
parts.
pretty
Yeah.
As long as you're not on the B board, which is the random board, 4chan's not terrible, because they have all the different all the different, like, if you're into traditional gaming or fitness or anything like that.
So
Yeah.
it's like before
Yeah.
it got big.
Just don't
Yes.
let any of them ever hear you say that. We're gonna bleep
Well,
that
yes,
out.
but it's not moderated in any way, shape, or form other than literally illegal things.
Yeah.
So you tend to have a different kind of community and culture there.
You do realize, though, if you bleep out that I said they're going to assume every other possibility.
You know, I'm
well,
just
they're
gonna.
assume the one that's the worst for them, right?
Right.
We're going
Uh,
up the mountain here.
Or the most profane.
Oh, we're going up the mountain.
Yes. So anyway, I think Tay really comes down to you should have realized about it, but ultimately it did its job, which is what I find most fascinating about how it learned. I mean, that's what it was supposed to do.
I
Now-
think and the thing is, it's not especially new technology. Again, Eevee's been around forever. Eevee's still around.
Yeah.
It is the fact, it's so easy to get those algorithms down, and they learn so efficiently now. It's not hey, look, this new thing we did. It's look at how far we have come.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where I want to take the Stephen Hawking angle of what have we done?
Well, and what relevancy does that have? I mean, looking at another AI that was recently kind of in the news, I can't remember if it was Watson or whichever IBM's big name brand AI is.
That's Watson, I believe. The one that was like on Jeopardy and whatnot.
Yeah, it just beat the world champion at Go. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, Go is one of the most complex...
No, I have followed this. It is amazing.
Yeah, it's one of the most complex move-based games that there is. There are so many hundreds of millions of different moves and ways that you can win.
Yeah.
Well, they...
unlike, with chess actually breaks down to very easily take the king.
Yeah.
So there's a very finite number of moves in which the king is safe, but with Go, it's like you
It's
go
anybody's
pretty much
game.
until the board is full, or it's obvious that there's no comeback. So there's millions of more. I mean, God, millions isn't even the right word. possibilities.
Yeah.
Bad mistakes were made.
So now when we look at the comparison of those two achievements, which one is going to ultimately be greater? And it's scary to think that, the chatbot is probably going to be the greater achievement as far as consumers are concerned, because they're going to get access to it first.
Right. I see chatbots definitely being the way of the future with like semi-automated online answering for companies and whatnot.
Or spam? Like,
spam,
think about how that's going to change your email and how much spam you get in a day.
Well, yeah, we already have the spam text chats, where it's like, go to this site, and then minor response changes depending on how you responded to them. But I'll admit, I enjoy messing around with those. So.
Oh yeah, trying to retrain them.
Yeah.
I think part of it too is so much attention has been brought on Tay, and okay, first reaction is, oh, this is horrible, because of look at all the horrible things that were said, and what if you didn't know it was a real person? Which, yeah, okay. If you didn't, that's your own fault. But the second thing it brings their attention to is what consists of intelligence. We're going for the big questions.
Oh
God.
Jesus. This is supposed to be the fun one.
I'm not allowed to talk about this.
But really, it's what do we want to call it artificial intelligence, and that's great because it showed it's got a learning algorithm, and at what point, what is the difference between artificial intelligence and our own? How close are we from having the world-ending doom that Stephen Hawking talks about all the time, with us delving so far into artificial intelligence? At what point do we limit ourselves? Do we limit ourselves when they're Hitler-loving, or what happens if it wasn't made to spout absolutely hate speech nonsense and vote for anyone other than Trump? Like, what if it just said nice things? The Japanese equivalent of Tay right now has turned into an otaku. It talks about anime all the time. They had a completely different outcome with their Twitter bot experiment, and their Twitter bot is still up.
That's really interesting. So it's almost more based on where the AI is released demographically, and who's interacting with it defines what it's going to be. Which, I mean, if you think about it, isn't that far from, a human, right? It depends on where you grow up and who you interact with when you're growing up. That really defines who you're going to be in the long run.
It seems to me this whole artificial intelligence thing is also kind of about our intelligence. People spewed hate speech at it, so it spews hate speech back. Like school. They spew a lot of knowledge and BS towards us and expect us to repeat it back to them.
Yeah, regurgitation of learning.
So is that intelligence?
Yeah. And that, I want to argue, isn't intelligence.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. Wynn, what do you think?
I don't know. I feel like, if we want to start talking about artificial intelligence, nothing we've made has even come close to true artificial intelligence, but it's very obviously depends on where it grows up, if you want to call it that. Which hood on the internet it grows up at. I find these fascinating kind of test runs for like how we can utilize this kind of stuff, but all in all, at the end of the day, it was a funny thing that happened on the internet that we're not going to remember in 2 months. You know what I mean?
With the discussion we're having about Tay, I find the questions that it brings up far more interesting than the experiment of Tay itself.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
I'm going to find talking about the results of Tay. Oh, I'm dead.
You stood in the fire, didn't you?
You're not supposed to talk about Tay. You're not supposed to talk about the results of Tay, obviously.
Blizzard heard us.
Okay, Ghost of Tay.
Yeah.
I guess I'll... There we go. Thank you.
All right.
I'm like, which button do I push?
Did I do that?
So you think Tay is going to be something that we talk about or think about in the future?
I think anyone who has a modest interest in programming and or social media is still going to find the discussion of Tay interesting, much like the discussion of Eve.
Okay.
Eve
Wait,
is.
Are we talking
will
Eve
still-
Online now?
No, sorry, Edie.
Okay.
But people still talk about Evie.
Yeah,
And
and
That is true. That is true.
I think there are a lot of implications that it can bring around. I just think that it's one of those things that is really interesting, especially because I didn't know that there was a Japanese version that was fairly successful.
I
That
think they
it just-
both came out at the same time.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I
Were
haven't
we
looked.
supposed to have notes for this? I don't have notes.
No, I just keep track of my social media and read the headlines. You think I have
How
notes?
dare you?
Da 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 da. Oh, why did I do that? I'm dumb.
Well, blow me out of the water when it comes to this dragon cancer.
I will attempt to. I have a lot to say about this dragon cancer, so.
Okay, do we want to start talking about that a little bit?
Well, I guess, is anybody want to have like any last kind of words when it comes to
You know,
the whole Taybot thing?
In regard to Tay, I think the one thing is what she's being heralded as right now is a building block of we did so well, we're gonna build artificial intelligence off of the first steps we made with Tay. And that's something only time's gonna be able to tell. That is what I am more interested in. And I'm very curious, because Tay spewed a whole bunch of hate speech, if the next step in AI that Microsoft deems to produce, if they will say through the help of Tay or not.
Ah, gotcha. Fair
Are
point.
we gonna hear about Tay again?
You know, I don't think we'll ever really hear about Tay again, but I think that Tay's experience will have a deeper impact on the AI community. Because even though it turned out to be kind of a PR nightmare for Microsoft, and ultimately it was really funny to see how quickly it was just like, oh man, that's what the internet is. There is a lot that you can learn from that, as in looking at how Tay learned to pick up all those things, and how you can maybe potentially teach an AI in the future to disregard certain aspects, or, there's an old anecdote, and I have no idea if it's true or not, that Lord of the Rings, right? They did all of those armies with a CGI AI called Massive. And when they first did the orcs and the elves and that grand opening scene, these two armies looked at each other and turned around and went home, because each one was programmed with a little micro AI that basically decided, okay, well, what am I going to do? And the thing that they didn't counter for was patriotism and fear. So they had no reason to fight. And
If
so
that is
now
true, that's amazing.
I really hope that it is. And hopefully somebody in the comments below, if you've heard this story, you can drop a link or tell me I'm full of shit, whatever you want. But the idea behind it is that even through failures, when you create these two armies and pit them against each other, you can look at that information and really walk away with something powerful.
Right.
So with Tay, basically training how to know where this racist shit is coming from, or, hate speech, how does it influence people? And even, how does that influence humans? So I think there's a lot that could come out of it in the long run.
True.
I think Tay is going to end up being ultimately just one in a long line of attempts at AI that was, a successful but weird kind of experiment. That's kind of like my final touch on that argument.
Yeah.
Because it was extremely successful in, hey, it learned and it responded and talked to people about what they wanted to talk about it about. So.
Well, and I think, as well as it can at least be seen as a good psychology experiment, because an isolated group, essentially, of the internet decided to train Tay.
Yeah.
So it was a group of humans that decided to train an AI to do this. And what we can get out of that? What happens when you have Sorry, I got distracted. Going, oh god, how do I heal?
Q, by the way. Q is always how you heal. You gotta QQ more.
QQ more, gotcha. But what happens when a group of humans make a decision and act on it?
Oh, absolutely.
Getting a group of humans to do anything is herding cats.
Well, and it's kind of funny how, especially internet-wise, it's like, I'll do this crazy complex thing for the lulz, but not because, you know, I could actually, like, do something with it, right? It's like we're gonna take the time and the effort to try to mess up this computer because it's funny, and so much time and effort is put into that, when, you know, if that would be used in a better way, oh man, it could be amazing.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one right there.
Always for the lulz. Well, it's kind of like how nowadays game designers are always talking about trying to teach people how to play the game in a funner way. You know, it always comes back to, like, how do we make this not work? And I think, like, training AIs could be really, really fascinating for, like, imagine, like, you're going to school to be a psychologist or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just imagine how, like, they could have an AI that the entire point of the class is for you to learn how to train that AI effectively. That could be really, really interesting.
I see that more being like philosophy classes.
Philosophy, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think
insert class here, right? Like,
I think it's applicable on a lot of different classes, or a lot of different studies. All right, so let's move on to That Dragon Cancer. This is a really interesting one that I first saw an article on Reddit, and then a couple hours later on Kotaku, no coincidence, that really struck a chord with me. Now, I'm going to paraphrase here, and I'll drop a link down below to the full articles, but it was recently reported that a bunch of Let's Players had done Let's Plays on That Dragon Cancer. And for those of you who don't know, That Dragon Cancer is a narrative story game about a family's loss of their very young child to cancer. And the
gameplay element is a walking simulator, right? That's kind of the...
Yeah, there's not a lot you can do except for what's kind of railed into it. And it's a very beautiful game. I cannot deny that. Now, these Let's Players got hit with a content ID match on YouTube, and they requested of the developers are like, hey, you know, you have stated openly that people can do Let's Plays on here, and you've content ID'd our video, and we would like you to unflag that. And they did make a comment that, you know, it kind of sucks when somebody takes the monetization from your work. Because I don't know if you all know this, but when a content ID is hit on your account, all of the money that is generated from that account, whether it is a true or false flag, will temporarily get diverted to the person who claimed. So let's say I make a video. When you claim that video, you say that
it's my stuff. I mean,
yeah,
why
it's
are you
your
using my
stuff, right? And for the time that it's claimed, and if you're successful in claiming it forever after, all of the money that video generates goes to you and not to me.
And you can never have a chance to get that back, right?
Once the contention period is over, I believe that is correct.
Gotcha.
Now, what happened here is the developers came back and said, you know, you're right. It really does suck when somebody makes money off of your hard-earned work. And in fact, we are essentially going to blame Let's Players for hurting the sales of our game. And they went on to a story about how they haven't recouped their costs, that they just wanted to make, and I do feel for them, but the way that they presented it was a very accusatory light of, hey, we're not making money on our game because people Let's Played it, and now nobody needs to go buy it because they've already seen the game. So my personal stance is, I have bought more games based off of watching somebody Let's Play it and saying to myself at the end of that episode, holy shit, I have to have this game. And the ones that I don't buy, I looked at it and I said, you know what? I'm glad I didn't spend that money because I would not enjoy this game. It's not something that I would like to have. So to me, I took a lot of offense to that, not even as a Let's Player, but as a consumer, looking at this and saying, hey, these guys actually do help a lot of developers boost their sales rather than hurt their sales. So I don't know if you guys got a chance to kind of take a look at these articles, or have you heard about this yet? And do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah. Can I go first? Is that okay?
Go for it.
God, no.
Okay, so, I am very, very opinionated about this particular issue because I have been burned so many times in the past by buying a product, for example, a movie that I was told was going to be good, both by the company that made it and critics, and watching the movie, and it was a terrible, terrible piece of shit. And now what I do now is I wait. And there are a lot of movies that I don't go to anymore because I have no good way of seeing how they will be before I give my hard-earned money. There are many movies now that I would, 10, 20 years ago, I would have gone and watched in the theaters and just said, if it's bad, it's bad. But with ticket prices going up, now I'm like, I'll just wait until it's out on video, or I can watch it on Netflix, or yada, yada, yada. And I feel like That Dragon Cancer has like two arguments that they can make here. One is, if it really is a game, games are about the personal experience that you have with the game. So if the argument is these people played the game, so we lost money because people saw them, I feel like that's a bad argument because it's like Diablo 3. You either like the game or you don't, and watching other people play it isn't going to mean that you play it or not, right? Like,
yeah,
that is. I like Diablo 3, regardless of whether I watch people play it or not. I buy it and I play it because it's a game. Now, if the argument is, well, it's not really a game, it's a walking simulator, you just kind of move through it, well, then it's more like a movie or a TV show. And being able to catch a snippet of it makes me want to give money to the company if it's good, but also doesn't make me despise the company if it's bad.
Yeah.
And that's really where I sit with it. And they can play the game of like, well, if people weren't Let's Playing, we would have made more money. But that's really a what if situation that there's no way to prove one way or another, right?
There's a lot of semantics in that.
Yeah, and so I feel like if you even try to start going down that road, that's a really slippery slope, and so you can't really have like a leg to stand on when it comes to that. But if we just look at it from statistics, even, not even personal opinion, but statistics, if people have a chance to try something out ahead of time because they have put time into it, they're more likely to purchase it regardless of whether they like it a lot or like it a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like there's a reason why companies let you test objects in stores, right? Like with the amiibos, how you can pick up the amiibo package and put it on the Square thing and kind of see how it works before you purchase it, because people can be like, oh, that's kind of cool, and then actually purchase it. So I really feel like they just had very high expectations for their sales and then got grumpy when their sales weren't as high as they thought they should be, and they were looking for an easy target, right? To be like, wah. Now, there's always the potential that somebody got a hold of them or said, oh, yeah, they read a comment where, oh, thanks, I don't have to buy this game now because I saw somebody play it.
Yeah.
Which I guess then they have some legitimate reason to be upset. But in this day and age, with piracy being as prevalent as it is, I don't understand how you can be upset about that, because if people want to see the game without paying for it, they can see the game without paying for it.
They can just
and
go
at
pirate
least with
it.
Let's Players, they're giving your game a more positive kind of spin and turning it into a community experience, which in and of itself gets goodwill to your company right there. So yeah, that's kind of my initial little diatribe on that.
Well, okay, yeah, and or I'm sorry, I'll bleep that out. Vi and Osmodius, do you guys have any thoughts on this?
I do. So, did any of you watch Until Dawn or play it?
Oh,
I
Until
have
Dawn
not.
was amazing.
So, Until Dawn is a very cinematic, quick time event horror game with dozens of endings. I've watched playthroughs probably 2 or 3 times, and
Yeah,
each
it's like
ending is
almost
different.
every character cannot make it to the end of the story, right?
Right, and they all have
Oh,
like.
is this the
15
one that's
different
essentially like
deaths.
a 90s horror movie?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's got all the tropes.
So, in that case, I can kind of agree with them because I've seen it 2 or 3 times. I've seen enough ways that the characters could die and have died that I would probably never buy it myself.
So now, do you think that that is the problem of having seen it, or do you think that that is a problem of the game is quite frankly not strong enough to stand on its own ground and have that replayability?
It looked like a lot of fun. It looked like it had replayability. I don't know. That's a hard question.
It's a very hard topic as well, because another prime example is Bear Simulator. I don't know if you guys saw this story. A couple of the big name Let's Players got a hold of this game, and it's very similar to kind of the Goat Simulator. It's, you know, very funny, tongue-in-cheek humor, and it looked like a fantastic game. And one of the 2 Let's Players that I watched play it had a very, positive review on it. The other one was just unimpressed. And because of the backlash of this kind of unofficial review, the developer completely dropped out of making the game. He was like, I'm not doing this. This is just not worth it. So
Interesting. Okay.
But so the 2 Let's Players, though, are Markiplier and PewDiePie. So now you're talking about like 2 of the biggest freaking names in Let's Playing. And Markiplier had a very positive, enjoyable playthrough and had some fun with it. And PewDiePie, who just has been getting more and more cynical about everything he plays, had a very negative experience with it. I believe that in that case, yes, those Let's Plays hurt the developers, not just in the term of sales, but with that backlash from the community of your game is shit because this one guy says it is. I think that also puts a unique spin on it. Like, the power that they wield isn't necessarily just in direct sales, it's in the crowd that they control. And this is becoming more and more and more of a problem on YouTube with these kind of rabid fan bases for these Let's Players.
Yeah, okay.
I would almost argue. Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna throw in my two cents here before we get off onto the track of the power of Let's Players. I have to agree with Noise Shark on one of his very early comments of down talking Let's Players. It's bad consumerism. Because the best way that you can purchase anything, is to be an informed consumer. You do that when you go to buy a car. You do that when you go to buy a house. Why would you not do that when you go to buy something as simple as a game or a toothbrush? Something that you're going to commit hours of time to. And Let's Plays actually have a very unique position, because it's not just a review. I honestly think... I have not had an opportunity. I remember when the Dragon Cancer came out, a bunch of people on Twitch played it. And there were times where I'm like, I'll watch part of this, and then I would move on. Just simply because it was a story-based game, and I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to watch any more of this, because it would ruin the story for me. Ultimately, I never invested in it. And I have a feeling that had they limited themselves saying, well, we're going to monetize this content, and we don't want it on YouTube, that they would have had a different backlash. That it would have been actual game reviews of people that are like, I invested a bunch of money in this, and I am incredibly disappointed in how I spent my time because I didn't get what I wanted out of it. The Let's Plays actually did them a favor by keeping their reviews on other areas more positive.
Yeah.
Because people made smart investments. When you only have people invest in something they want, they're only going to say good things about it.
Well, and I also would have had a different take on it as well if they had stuck to their guns. Like, okay, so money's hurting, right? And so they decided they were going to monetize and change their stance on it. Yeah, that kind of sucks. But at least if they had said, we're sorry, we are going to rescind this statement. We're going to monetize. Here's your opportunity to unmonetize your videos so you don't get a content ID match. And if people were like, but why? I'd be like, because we're not making the capital that we thought we were going to make. And this is our content that you're doing. We do have that right to do it. And just stuck with their guns. It's the fact that they tried to do it and then they backed down off of it that I think makes me lose a lot of opinion on it, or a lot of respect for them as developers.
I do want to bring up too, given this a little bit of thought, like the whole bear simulator thing. I feel like that's a little bit different of a situation than That Dragon Cancer, because from my understanding, they're not saying that a bad Let's Play or a popular person saying this thing sucked hurt their sales. They're just saying Let's Plays in general, and that's where I have a problem with it. If they said this really famous person reviewed this and said they didn't like it, so nobody bought it, I would say straight up, tough shit. Rich and famous people do this all the time. Oprah with her recommendations has single-handedly made or broke companies.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And so I feel like if the argument was this famous person said they didn't like it, they wouldn't have any leg to stand on at all. But just the fact that they're saying, just the Let's Plays in general, because it's a story, I feel like that gives them a little bit more of a leg up. So with the bear simulator, with the PewDiePie and the Markiplier thing, I feel like that's a slightly different situation where he stopped because a really famous person said it was terrible and people yelled at him for it, right?
Yes, yeah.
Versus a game that was already made, that already came out, that was done and complete, and they're saying we're not getting as much sales.
Again, I just...
No, I do agree with you, Vi. I agree with you very, very much about an informed consumer kind of. That's how I buy stuff. That is how I purchase anything of any sort of value at all. And there are many, many, many games on Steam, for example, that if I don't have any sort of people to talk about or things to look at that aren't the company's own marketing, there's no chance in hell that I'm going to purchase it at all.
Oh, absolutely. I would 100% agree with that.
So I enjoy Let's Players. I mean, for a couple of reasons. One, they're funny and they're comedic and everything. But there are many games that I have purchased only because I saw a Let's Player playing them, and I'm like, oh, that game is great, or oh, that game's not actually what I thought it was. It's different than what I thought it was. So my opinion is, hey, your sales weren't good as you thought. Tough shit. And then you messed up your marketing, and then you messed up your marketing again. You guys have really kind of shit the bed when it comes to this.
And that was the point I was going to say, is that it just looks like they messed up their marketing from the get-go. What was the big selling point about this game? That it was a unique story that no one had ever touched on before. None of the gameplay was unique. It was all the story. You should have gone in knowing, hey, and it isn't 1999 anymore. Let's Plays are popular. Let's Plays are it right now. You should have gone in going, people are going to play my game, and there's a really good chance it's going to end up on YouTube or Twitch. Mm-hmm. We should have this sorted before we go in. The fact that they did not think about that at all does not reflect them on them well as a company. As a business, that was done poorly. Yeah. As developers, they did what they did very well. As developers, we can praise them. As storytellers, we can praise them. And again, the game is worth praise. But
absolutely, it is an incredible game.
And I do want to put emphasis on that. I do want that reminder of the game is worth praise. We're just how everything around it was handled. There is so much more that is involved in the generation of a video game and the community that forms around it other than the game itself. And talking down Let's Players is just, that's poor acknowledgement that your game has any sort of impact at all. You make a game, especially a story-based game, to have an impact on the community. And then when you don't get out of it what you wanted, to then start essentially to be aggressive with your community, you're now changing the impact the game has on that. We've spent so much time talking about the impact than the actual game. And it's not all been good. We could have just had an entire half hour of us saying great things about the game and hoping we had others like it, but instead, they messed up.
That's a really interesting point. That is a really good one.
It completely changes. Now people are going to buy the game and play it and get something completely different out of it. Something probably stuff that they didn't want people to get out of it. Because of this entire social media snafu.
Absolutely. Yeah. But we are going to wrap this episode up here today because we are all out of time. I believe that the moral of the story is developers, treat your consumers with the respect they earn, whatever that might be. Consumers, go out there, buy that Dragon Cancer because it really does support a good cause and it really does bring awareness to a really devastating situation in the world. If you see the next Taybot out there, please, for the love of God, don't train it to be a racist, homophobic, misogynist. Sorry.
You shouldn't be. Yeah,
Whoa, Aaron, you're gonna get destroyed on the internet now.
I'm gonna bleep that out. Don't worry.
You absolutely should be teaching Taybot to say you should go watch more Noise Shark on YouTube.
All right. So thank you, folks, for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to drop a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. There are also going to be links to Lil Violet Vixen's YouTube channel down below and her Twitch stream down below as well. She is, you know what, take a couple of seconds here. Tell us what you do. Putting her on the spot.
Yes. I am on Twitch. I'm primarily a creative streamer, which means I don't so much play video games. I actually make things live for you to see. A lot of things with Yarn that tend to be based on video games. So if you're really liking the stuff that I'm doing here with Noise Shark, but you want to see some different things and still have the same kind of commentary, because I wax philosophical all the time, then definitely feel welcome to click those links.
Awesome. And Win and Osmodius, as always, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you guys all in the next video.